Hey guys, welcome back to A Good Life Farm. So this is the official kickoff of the weekly garden tours. Every week I will be sharing a garden tour. Ordinarily they will be going up on Saturday mornings, but this will be a Sunday morning garden tour because it's been a busy week and I'm a little bit behind. So you will be able to see garden tours every single week all through the garden season. This is something that I started doing a couple of years ago, and I've really enjoyed doing that and sharing the progress with everyone. If you are brand new here, my name is Constance. I am a food and lifestyle writer over at Cosmopolitan.Cornbread.com, where you can find hundreds of recipes and homesteading related articles. I will put a link to that down below so you can check it out if you are so inclined. And here on our homestead, again, we've named this A Good Life Farm. We moved here right about 5 years ago, and this was a blank slate property. There was a house and there was our little barn shed and nothing else. No fences, no gardens, that was it. And so it's been a gradual process to create everything that you'll see here so far. There's more yet to come, but one step at a time. Now I have two garden areas. This one here behind me is my raised bed garden, and then I have a larger in-ground garden that is over to the side of the property. There are a couple of raised beds out there as well, but that one is mostly a no-till garden. It has been a gradual process building up the soil. This was just old farmland, old cropland, and you couldn't hardly find worms in the soil, and over time it is becoming lovely. Every year it's a little bit better than it was the year before. So let's get started. So right down here in the front I have a blueberry hedge that I put in last spring, and as you can see we've got some gorgeous blueberries. This will be the first year that we'll be able to pick any off of these. So we're very excited about that. I don't actually know what varieties these are. They came from a local family. They had a beautiful established blueberry grove on their property, and so I was able to go and dig up some little baby plants and put them here. Over here I have a bed of primarily flowers. I've got a great big rosemary bush right there. We've got some salvia, some dianthus, there's some dahlias down in here, some lilies, there's some bee balm down there on the end. So this one is just generally flowers. I do what is called a potager or potager. Same word, different pronunciation. They're both the right pronunciation. It just depends on how you want to say it. But it's called the potager garden. And it is a combination of edibles and beautiful things. You know, this is the garden, and while I do like to grow things for us to eat, I also like it to be beautiful, and it helps draw in the bees as well. So here in this long bed I've got a variety of things. First of all, this is some yarrow, and I put that in last year, and someone told me after I planted it that it can become invasive, and they were not kidding. This thing has just gone crazy this spring, and I've already had to cut out a ton of it. I think at the end of this season I will dig all of this out and relocate it to a different spot. Down in here at the base of this arch I have some winged beans that I've planted. I'll put the variety of what they're called down in the corner here. There's some basil over there. I've got a patch of oregano back there. Down in here I have some spots where I've put some seed. I've got some momolo. I always want to call it mammoth, but it's momolo basil. Down in here I just put some zinnia seeds. These are some magnolia tendril peas that I had planted in the spring, and you know, they didn't really come up for ages, and then just recently they did. So I don't know if I'll actually end up getting anything out of them, but they do look pretty. Down in there I've got a few little sprouts that have come up. This is red Freddy basil. It's a lovely purple basil. I've got some tarragon. Along the trellis I have several tomato plants. I've got some sage down here, a dahlia there. This is tricolor sage. I've got some sweet alyssum. Over on this side, this is a pesto type of basil. Very thick. I love the variegated leaves that it has on there. This is some lavender that's kind of struggling a little bit, so I hope it takes off. Down here I have another lovely variegated herb. I think this was marjoram. Over in this bed I have more peas that were kind of late arriving. Now I'm in northern Alabama and we are garden zone 7B, but being that it's northern Alabama, it gets really hot here in the summer pretty quickly. Well, in the spring. It doesn't wait till summer. And so planting peas in the summer isn't always very successful. It tends to do better in the autumn, but I had decided to just stick some out here in the garden beds just to see. Here I've got several heads of bib lettuce, which has been doing great. It'll be getting too hot though here pretty soon for this, and it'll start to bolt and go to seed. I've got some more herbs tucked down all through here. We've got some chives, more of that tricolor sage. Down in there I've got what's called silver posy thyme, and it's got those variegated leaves again. Over along this side of this bed I've only planted flowers just because this was such a narrow area back in here. This bed was built before we put in the fencing. The fencing went in along the sidewalk and came this way, making it much too narrow to really work very well in there. And so I simply decided to grow nothing but flowers along here. That way I didn't really need to get in here and work too much. Over in this bed, again, I've got some herbs. I've got several different varieties of tomatoes and a couple of flowers because I think flowers should be everywhere. This is my asparagus bed, which is just taking off and going crazy with all of the huge ferny fronds. Now over along here you can see lots of young fruit trees that we put in. There are pear trees, apple trees, little peach trees, and they are doing their best to grow. It'll take time, but you know, they always say the best time to plant a tree is 30 years ago. The second best time is today. And then over in the far corner here, I have a patch of red raspberries that actually just got put in very recently. You can see that I use a lot of cattle panel trellises. They are very durable. They hold up pretty much anything I could possibly want to grow out here. And I can use them year after year and configure them in different ways, whether it is a straight wall sort of panel or if I want to make arches. So they're very handy. Down here I've got some more of that lovely variegated marjoram, some lemon, thyme. This is purple sage, silver posy thyme. I've got tomatoes. This down here is some lemon sage. This is a new one to me. I had never seen this one before. I found it at one of my local garden supply stores, Feed and Seed. Alright, so this is my in-ground bed over here, as you can see. The way I configure my garden beds is very long beds that they actually go east to west. And I put them about 4.5 feet wide or so. Any wider than that, then I can't really reach into the middle without having to lean over things. So once again, I have a gigantic yarrow patch right here. And this was actually all standing up nice and pretty until we had this massive storm come through last week. And it just whipped apart My poor yarrow here, you can see it's all laid out, so I don't know if it will be able to stand back up after that. But yeah, it's just kind of taken over this spot right here. But in this instance, I have all of this classic white yarrow, and then over in there I actually have this is the Polish pastel variety, I believe is what that is. So I've got a little bit of variation out here, mostly white yarrow, but a little bit of pink. So right down there I've got some squash that I've planted along with some zinnias. Over here on this side I've got this is a coneflower, a type of scarlet version. And then this area all in here is not yet planted. This is being set aside for tomatoes. So we had a little bit of an incident, and I vlogged about it a couple of weeks ago, where I had started all of my seeds back in February, and all of the tomatoes were out in the cold frame. They were just about ready to go into the ground, into the garden, and they got frozen. We had an incident, and so I've started tomato plants all over again from seed. I have just a handful that survived the freeze that I have planted out there in the front garden, along with a few that I picked up at my local feed and seed store. But all of the rest are still growing. They're about yay big. So I've got areas out here that are not yet planted. They are just waiting for the tomatoes. And I also have 2 beds that I'm setting aside for pepper plants that are not yet ready. So that is what will be going all down through here. I do have a couple of sunflowers that I've popped in here and there. I love sunflowers. They're one of my favorite flowers, and I always have them in the garden. These right here are Egyptian walking onions. They are a perennial type of onion. They will form these heads, and these are all little baby onions, and then this will get heavy, fall to the ground, and start another cluster of onions. And you can see down in there what they kind of look like. So you can use these like green onions, like scallions, and they taste a little bit like a shallot. They have a very mild flavor, but they are a perennial and they just keep on growing. Egyptian walking onions. I have lots of perennial flowers tucked in here and there. This is Coreopsis. It's just beginning to form buds. Over here I have a trellis of beans. On this side I've got the purple potted pole beans. On the other side I have NT half-runner green beans. And then down in the bottom I planted 2 yellow crookneck squash plants because I feel like they kind of like the shade. So as these beans grow up and cover this trellis, they'll have lots of shade down there. Over here I have another little patch of flowers. I've got some stonecrop, which is a perennial flower. Over there is another variety of Coreopsis, which that is actually a native plant. Down there I have some pineapple sage. This side of this trellis is not yet planted. Over on the other side I planted some Kajari melons. I like to grow those up trellises. Down here we've got some dill. And then these are my patches of comfrey. Comfrey is an excellent perennial kind of flower. It's very early, great for the bees, but you can grow this as fertilizer for your garden. And I have a video where I talk all about that. I will put a link to that down below. Over here I have another cluster of the Egyptian walking onions. And this trellis here, on both sides, I have melons. On this side, I just planted all of these seeds today. On this side, I have Israeli melons, which were some seeds that were sent to me by one of my lovely subscribers. And then over on the other side, I have, I believe they're called chrysanthemum melons, which is a new variety to me, as well as the Israeli ones. This area over here is again just waiting for the tomatoes. Again, I like to use the trellises, the cattle panels, to grow my tomatoes and support those. This is a volunteer sunflower that came back. I have no idea what variety this is going to end up being. I grew a number of different kinds of sunflowers last year, so we'll just have to wait and see what this ends up being. Right down here on the end, this is a little bitty lilac bush that I just planted last year, so this will take some time to really get established. And then this right here is swamp milkweed. And the butterflies, specifically the monarchs, absolutely love this. I had monarch caterpillars all over these the last couple of weeks, but they are just getting ready to start flowering. Last year is the first year I ever got chamomile to grow. I've never had success with the seeds before, but it grew and it has come back, so I'm very happy to see this. And then here again I have another trellis, and these I did kind of teepee style, where they go up to a point and come down. And there's again beans on both sides. There are some purple pod pole beans, as well as more of the NT half runners. Those are two of my favorite varieties to grow. They just grow very prolifically. They grew really well here. And yeah, both varieties can well too. Now this area over here, I do not have anything growing yet, of course, as you can see. I just have it tarped off to keep it from filling up with weeds and all of that. Haven't yet decided what will grow here, but we'll see. So the area right down here, I've got a big stretch that you can see is empty and waiting. I currently have sweet potato slips that are in the house started. I think they're actually ready for me to snip them off and let them start rooting. But this is where I plan on growing those. Those are a purple variety. I don't know what the name of the variety is. I just know that they are purple sweet potatoes, and they were potatoes that I had ordered through Asia Standard to eat, but I had a couple that I didn't eat, and I thought, I'm gonna see if I can grow these. So this is where those are going to go. So this right here is Tulsi. It's holy basil, and it self-seeds very easily. And I had some here last year, and this has just kind of come back on its own, and I thought that's a good spot for it to be. These over here are some sweet potatoes as well. These are just your classic Beauregard orange sweet potatoes. This bed right here is another one that is waiting to be planted. I did actually just put some sunflower seeds down at the bases of a couple of the posts yesterday morning, but this is waiting for tomatoes. Now this raised bed over here, the last 2 years I planted tomatoes in it, grew those pretty well, but I wanted to kind of mix it up a little bit, rotate things around, and so this year I have got some squash in here. I've got some zucchini, I've got some repicante squash, and a couple other different varieties that off the top of my head I can't remember what they are. But when I planted them, I always plant a few extra seeds just in case I don't get full germination. But I gotta be honest, it looks like I may have gotten about 100% germination, so I am gonna have to thin these out just a little bit. I may try and transplant some of them into other spots, but they all seem to have come up. And right down in the center I have some nasturtium flowers that I had started from seed. I think they grow really well with squash. They are a companion plant, and they're supposed to help with squash bugs. And then here is another bed in waiting to be planted. So it is still early in the season. A lot of things are very small or still seed or not yet planted, but I will bring you along on the journey all through the season and share everything with you with these weekly garden tours. Now I am all about keeping it real. If there is something I am struggling with, I share that. I share, what I do about pests how I'm fertilizing, all of those good things, because in my heart I like to teach and I like to share and I like to encourage others to garden as well. That is it for today. Thanks for joining me here at A Good Life Farm with this early season garden tour. I hope you come along with me on every tour every week and see how the garden grows. If you are not already subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button. So that is it for today. I will talk to y'all next time.